Topic 10. Planning for Contingencies. Part 1. Introduction to Contingency Planning. The overall planning for unexpected adverse events is called contingency planning. It is how communities of interest position their organizational units to prepare for, detect, react to, and recover from events that threaten the security of information resources and assets. The main goal of CP is to restore normal modes of operation with minimum cost and disruption to normal business activities after an unexpected adverse event. Contingency planning consists of four major components: the business impact analysis, the incident response plan, the disaster recovery plan, and the business continuity plan. Depending on the organization's size and business philosophy, IT and information security managers can either create and develop these four CP components as one unified plan, or create the four separately in conjunction with a set of interlocking procedures that enable continuity. Once formed, the Contingency Planning Management Team begins developing a contingency plan document for which NIST recommends using the following steps. First, develop the Contingency Plan Policy Statement. A formal policy provides the authority and guidance necessary to develop an effective contingency plan. Second, conduct the business impact analysis. This helps identify and prioritize information systems and components critical to supporting the organization's mission and business processes. A template for developing the BIA is provided to assist the user. Third, identify preventative controls. Measures taken to reduce the effects of system disruption can increase system availability and reduce contingency lifecycle costs. Step 4 is create contingency strategies. Thorough recovery strategies ensure that the system may be recovered quickly and efficiently following a disruption. Then, develop a contingency plan. The contingency plan should contain detailed guidance and procedures for restoring damaged organizational facilities unique to each business unit's impact level and recovery requirements. 6. Ensure plan testing, training, and exercises. Testing validates recovery capabilities, whereas training prepares recovery personnel for plan activation, and exercising the plan identifies planning gaps. Combined, the activities improve plan effectiveness and overall organization preparedness. 7. Ensure plan maintenance. The plan should be a living document that is updated regularly to remain current with system enhancements and organizational changes. Components of the contingency planning policy include an introductory statement of philosophical perspective by senior management, a statement of the scope and purpose of the contingency plan operations, a call for periodic risk assessment and BIA by the CPMT, a description of the major components of the contingency plan, a call for and guidance in the selection of recovery options and business continuity strategies. Other components include a requirement to test the various plans on a regular basis, identification of key regulations and standards that impact CP planning, and a brief overview of their relevancy. Identification of key individuals responsible for contingency plan operations. An appeal for support to the individual members of the organizations, and additional administrative functions. The Contingency Plan Management Team includes a champion, a project manager, team members, which include business managers, IT managers, and information security managers, an incident response team, a disaster recovery team, and a business continuity team. The business impact analysis is the first phase of the contingency plan process. One of the fundamental differences between a BIA and risk management is that risk management focuses on identifying threats, vulnerabilities, and attacks to determine which controls can protect the information. The BIA assumes that these controls have been bypassed, have failed, or otherwise proved ineffective, that the attack succeeded, and that the adversity that was being defended against has come to fruition. This slide illustrates the relationship of the different components of the contingency planning process. This slide illustrates the major tasks and the procedures in contingency planning. The business impact analysis begins with a prioritized list of threats and vulnerabilities identified in the risk management process and enhances the list by adding the information needed to respond to the adversity. When undertaking the BIA, the organization should consider the scope, the plan, the balance, the objectives, and any follow-ups. According to NIST Special Publication 800-34, Revision 1, the Contingency Planning Management Team conducts the BIA in 3 stages. First, determining the mission, business processes, and recovery criticality. Second, identifying resource requirements. And third, identifying recovery priorities for system resources. The first major BIA task is the analysis and prioritization of business processes within the organization based on their relationship to the organization's mission. Each business department, unit, or division must be independently evaluated to determine how important its functions are to the organization as a whole. A weighted analysis table can be useful in resolving the issue of what business function is the most critical. One useful tool in identifying and collecting information about business functions for the analysis is the BIA questionnaire. Recovery time objective, RTO, is the maximum amount of time that a system resource can remain unavailable before there is an unacceptable impact on other system resources, supported mission business processes, and the MTD. Recovery point objective, RPO, is the point in time prior to a disruption or a system outage to which mission business process data can be recovered, given the most recent backup copy of the data after an outage. MTD is the maximum tolerable downtime, the total amount of time the system owner or authorizing official is willing to accept for a mission business process outage or disruption, and includes all impact considerations. WRT, the work recovery time, is the amount of effort expressed as elapsed time that is necessary to get the business function operational after the technology element is recovered, as identified with the RTO. The WRT typically involves the addition of non-technical tasks required for the organization to make the particular information asset usable for its intended business function again. As the Contingency Planning Management Team conducts the BIA, it will be assessing priorities and relative values on mission business processes. To do so, it needs to understand the information assets used by those processes, as the presence of high-value information assets may influence the valuation of a particular business process. Normally, this task would be performed as part of the risk assessment function within the risk management process. The organization should identify, classify, and prioritize its information assets, placing classification labels on each collection or repository of information in order to better understand its value and to prioritize its protection. Step 2 is to identify recovery requirements. Once the organization has created a prioritized list of its mission business processes, it needs to determine what resources would be required in order to recover those processes and the assets associated with them. For each process and information asset identified in the previous BIA stage, the organization should identify and describe the relevant resources needed to provide or support that process. A simplified method for organizing this information is to put it into a resource component table. This slide shows an example of a resource component table in an organization. The last stage of the BIA is prioritizing the resources associated with the mission business processes, which provides a better understanding of what must be recovered first, even within the most critical processes. With the information from previous steps in hand, the organization can create additional weighted tables of the resources needed to support the individual processes. In addition to the weighted tables described earlier, a simple valuation and classification scale, such as primary, secondary, tertiary, or critical, very important, important, routine, can be used to provide a quicker method of evaluating the supporting resources. Prior to the development of each of the types of contingency planning documents outlined in this topic, the CP team should work to develop the policy environment that will enable the business impact analysis process and should provide specific policy guidance toward authorizing the creation of each of the planning components. These policies provide guidance on the structure of the subordinate teams and the philosophy of the organization, and they assist in the structuring of the plan. Just as the enterprise InfoSec policy defines the InfoSec roles and responsibilities for the entire enterprise, each of the contingency plan documents is based on a specific policy that defines the related roles and responsibilities for that element of the overall contingency plan environment within the organization.